Hi guys. Um, a lot of this material that I'm going to start going over with you is going to wind up on AP next year. So I'm sure I've already posted this or something with you guys to say, go over this, do this on your own, and then I will go over the answers with you. Individually, if you have a problem, you can always message me, right? Oh, one more thing. There we go. Get rid of that. Okay, so we're just going to start very quickly with the Byzantine Empire, right? If you remember, the Byzantine Empire is the eastern portion of the Roman Empire. And so the objective here is, where was the Byzantine Empire? So you're going to need to be able to do that after completing this packet. And how did its geography and location affect the development? People's geography always affect the development of a country, of a nation, of a culture. Right? So you don't really have this on your sheet that I've sent you. You guys have this, right? So the first thing they have you doing is to think about location, right? And so these objectives are the things that you need to be able to do. You need to be able to tell me where the Byzantine Empire was, again, and how did its geography and location affect its development. You have describe, explain there. So what they give you here is they give you this little pizza restaurant map, right? And they want you to predict which pizza restaurant will make more money. Now, hopefully what you saw here was that the one on the left here is surrounded by a lot of houses, has a school near it, has a playground near it. Whereas the population density over here in pizza restaurant B has much less houses, no businesses, no other schools, and what have you. And hopefully, right, your instinct says this, right? This is the correct answer. Pizza restaurant A will make more money because it is surrounded by more people. It has more potential customers. It will have more traffic going back and forth, population density. Now, do we know this to be 100% true? No. Right? Pizza restaurant B could be the best pizza in the history of the world, and people from outside the neighborhood could be coming to get it. We don't know that, but with exercises like this, we're asked to make predictions and to offer rationale behind it. Again, it's not math. Okay, so now we're going over here, and what it wants you to see, right? It wants you to think about the comparison of population density and being surrounded by lots of houses to the Byzantine Empire, right? So you can see on this map here, the Byzantine Empire with its capital at Constantinople, named for the Emperor Constantine. It is, again, the Eastern Roman Empire. Most of the wealth is in the east. And this is the Byzantine Empire at its height. It consists a lot of some of the Western Roman Empire, a little over here in Spain, right, and all along the Mediterranean. So it's going to really, at this point, control a lot of the trade. Its capital is Constantinople, which is essentially for Europe the end of the Silk Road. So a lot of trade comes through Constantinople. Right, so it's asking you to do relative location, right? Identify 3 continents on which the Byzantine Empire controlled land, right? Hopefully you can see that it's Asia, Europe, and Africa, right? Describe the location of the Byzantine Empire relative to 2 regions, right? So it's relative to 2 other regions, right? The Byzantine Empire is, let's go with east of most of Europe, east and south of most of Europe, at the far western edge of Asia, at the tip of the northern edge of Africa. Okay. 2 bodies of water. I'm going to be fancy here. The Byzantine Empire, right, surrounds in this map the Mediterranean Sea, but its capital is north of the Mediterranean Sea. And let's go with, it is east of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. And then it just wants you to do this. We've done this all year, guys. That's not really difficult for you, right? So this question here is, how interconnected was the Byzantine Empire in the post-classical era? That's the era we're in now, right? After the year 600, after the end of classical empires like Rome and the Han. And of course, my phone rings. We'll just ignore whoever that is. Okay, so what does it want you to see here in the map? Okay, it wants you to see how connected the Byzantine Empire is to all the trade networks of the world. Remember that in the time we're looking at, there is no North and South America. There's a much better map for all of you to understand that the heart of the world is right here. The majority of the world's civilizations are right through here. Okay, that places like Britain, right? A history of a country that a country's history who I love. They're right at the edge of meaninglessness. Okay, now they might be separate complexes of trade, but that doesn't mean that they don't trade with each other. There's no boundary here that someone's going, well, I'm in the Indian Ocean trade, I can't have anything to do with the Silk Road. They're all interconnected. These are just labels historians give them to describe general trade routes, but these are all trade routes that are interconnected, right? And which trade networks are connected to the Byzantine Empire? Let's go with all of them, okay? They are right at the heart here of the connection between the Silk and the Mediterranean, but they're also very closely located to the Trans-Saharan trade route, transits across the Sahara, and very closely located to the Indian Ocean complex. Identify 4 cities that people living in Constantinople could have traded with. Again, let's pick, right, far away. Peking in China, right? Malacca in Indonesia. Greater Zimbabwe in Africa, Lisbon in Portugal. The reason this city is traditionally so wealthy is because of so much trade that flows through it. Okay, how might living at the intersection of several trade networks have affected the lives of people in the Byzantine Empire during the post-classical era? Well, let's think about living in a place, right? Let's think about living in a city where people from all over the world come through, right? So if you think of New York, right? New York is multicultural. There are religions from everywhere. There are ideas from everywhere. There are, in a modern sense, there are restaurants from all over the world, right? You have access to goods from all over the world. Generally, right, the impact on people is wealth, right? Positive impact would be greater wealth, greater access to goods, a greater variety of ethnic, cultural, religious ideas. And given the time that I'm recording this, right, one big negative would be that since so many people are moving through Constantinople and is so interconnected with the world trade routes, disease, right? I'm recording this while we're all home from school from the pandemic. And think about just New York State. Who has high numbers of the coronavirus, COVID-19? Well, New York City does. Why? Great population density, flights coming in and out from all over the world, right? People from all over the world traveling through it. Whereas if you go out into, I don't know, Allegheny County, right? The numbers are lower because there's less interaction with people who are moving across the entire world, right? How did the location of Constantinople affect its development and that of the Byzantine Empire? Again, hopefully you can see these maps. This is the previous one, right? This is zoomed in Constantinople here, right? Is this connection from the Black Sea through the Straits of the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus Strait, right? It's located right on the water in this connection between Europe on this side and Asia on that side. Right? And you can see the goods coming in from everywhere, right? Silk from China that needs to go through the Mediterranean complex comes in that way. Cloves, sandalwood, pepper, spices, right? Gems from India and East Indies, wine from France, cork from Spain, tin and iron from England, ivory and gold from Africa, grain and wool from Central Europe, furs, honey, timber from Northern Europe, and one thing that's not mentioned are slaves from Eastern Europe, right? The term slave, S-L-A-V-E, is just a derivative of the ethnic group of people that lived in Eastern Europe, the Slavic people. Right? So it asks you to describe the location of Constantinople relative to two continents, right? It is on the edge of Europe and Asia. That might be one. What might be another good one here? It is close to the African continent, just north of. Okay. Relative to two bodies of water, it connects the Black Sea and the Aegean Sea, right? Basically what you want to see is how centrally located, how connected, how easy it is to be able to get goods on all these trade routes to Constantinople. Okay. This is the one you have to think about, how geography and its location affected the development of Constantinople. Right? Because of its central location, it is going to be a trading hub, which is going to make it a wealthy city. Again, because of those factors, it is going to have cultural influences from all over the world, right? Because of its location on the water and on the tip, it is going to be easy to defend. That's another good one, right? Let's see, what else can we say about Constantinople? It's going to be full of merchants from all over the world. I might have mentioned that, right? So generally what you want to see is it's a cosmopolitan city. Excuse me, Benjamin of Tudella's description of Constantinople, right? It wanted you to read the information, his primary source, examine the map of his travels, and read his account. I'm going to pause. I need a little water. I'm going to pause this record. If I can I pause recording? And I'll be right back. Okay, so let's look at this primary source document. And again, with primary source documents, you do not want to get bogged down with too many details. You want to get a sense of what they're arguing. What is their main idea? And you want to avoid quoting them back to answer questions. You want to be able to use your own words, because that demonstrates to the reader who's reading your work that you know what you're talking about. Okay. A lot of times kids skip this little introduction. I want to read it because it gives you a little bit of context about who the author is. Benjamin of Tudela was a Jewish traveler from the kingdom of Castile in modern-day Spain in the 12th century, right? So what do we already know? He's not from Constantinople. He's from Spain, and he's not a Christian. He traveled throughout Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, visiting Jewish communities and writing about his travels. Again, what can I pull from that, right? He has seen a lot of the world. What else you can kind of figure out from this is there are a number of Jewish communities throughout the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe, right? They're called, in AP World, they're called diasporic communities because the Jewish people, a lot of them are spread out because after AD 70, they've been kicked out of the Holy Land. And also a good number of them are merchants, right? So they have their little community of their ethnic enclave. This isn't unique to being Jewish. This is pretty standard for any group of people that settle in a foreign country. Again, if you think of North Tonawanda, right? The central part of North Tonawanda has a lot of German names, and out near Wurlitzer Park is an area called Martinsville. Those were the German enclaves. Once you get above like Summer and Kyle Streets, you begin to get up into the avenues, right? You have Our Lady of Czestochowie Roman Catholic Church, where there were a lot of Polish people inside, right? And because when you come to a new country, you tend to live in and around people that share an ethnicity. Okay, so he is describing, right, from his perspective, what he sees there. The circumference of the city of Constantinople is 18 miles, one half of the city being bounded by the continent, the other by the sea, two arms of which meet here. The one, a branch or outlet of the Russian otherwise known as Black Sea, the other of the Spanish Sea, the Mediterranean Sea. If I were to pause there, it kind of tells you what things were called at that time. The Black Sea was called the Russian Sea because Russia is right up there. Right? He's probably calling it the Spanish Sea because he's from Spain and the Mediterranean's located right there. I'm not sure that the people of Constantinople called the Mediterranean Sea, right, the Spanish Sea. And you might remember me telling you in class that during the height of the Roman Empire, they called it Nos Mar, or our sea, because they controlled the whole thing. Great stir and bustle prevails, which means dominates at Constantinople in consequence of the conflux or meeting of many merchants who resort thither, right, come there, both by land and sea, from all parts of the world for purposes of trade, including merchants from Babylon and from Mesopotamia, from Media and Persia, from Egypt and Palestine, as well as from Russia, Hungary, Patsinakia, Bunia, Lombardy, and Spain. In this respect, the city is equaled only by Baghdad, the metropolis of the Mohammedans, otherwise known as Muslims, right? That's an older term for Muslim. Right? So you have a bunch of questions down here that are going to ask you to do a number of things with the document, right? If this was AP World, we'd be a little bit more sophisticated with it, right? Who is Benjamin of Tudela? He is a Jewish merchant, right? When does he write it? He writes it in the 12th century, so the 1100s. Based on his account, identify 3 locations merchants came to Constantinople from. Well, they're coming from Babylon, from Mesopotamia, so they're coming from over here in the east. Media and Persia is also over here, from Egypt and from Palestine. They're coming from Russia, Hungary. Budnia might also be Hungary because I'm thinking of Budapest, but I don't know. Lombardy is up here, right? And Spain. In other words, they are coming from this entire region. According to his account, why did great stir and bustle prevail in Constantinople? Well, if you take a look at it, right, it's because of all the commerce that's going on, right? There is great stir and bustle because all the merchants are trading. They're coming from all over the world to trade with each other. So he's probably in a great market, right, where he is watching merchants trade and exchange goods, right? So there's an Arabic word for that that's called bazaar, right? So he's probably in this outdoor bazaar watching merchants trade from all over the world, exchange goods. For a lack of better word, think kind of like a flea market. Okay. Explain the extent to which Benny's account is a reliable source of evidence about Constantinople. Well, we've not done a ton of this, right? Is it reliable? Generally, one can say, yes, this is a reliable description of Constantinople because Benjamin of Tudela, right, was there and was a witness and had traveled throughout all of the Middle East, right, and was able to reliably, he's not hearing this secondhand, right? It's not a bad way to look at it. Now, there are some other things that we can take into account here, right? It's definitely a primary source. Well, everyone has a point of view. I don't like the word biased. Everyone has a point of view, right? He's Spanish. He's a merchant, so he's paying particular attention to those things, right? Limitations is what I like, right? How is this document limited? This document is limited because he is only capturing Constantinople at one time in its history. And in reality, this doesn't tell you anything about Constantinople besides this one marketplace. We don't know the political life. We don't know the social life, right? He's going to be drawn to the merchants of Constantinople because that's what he does for a living. It's like if you put me in a bookstore, right? Think about what section you'd find me in. Well, you're probably going to find me in the history section. I'm not going to know what's going on in the literature section, maybe, or in the science section, right? So, and that's what I'm going to tell you. This bookstore is good because they have an amazing history department. Well, I'm a historian. Of course, that's going to be important to me, and this document is limited that way. Identify a cause and effect relationship. And this is, no matter what you write, guys, you have to identify cause and effect, right? Which is depicted on the map of Constantinople, right? And his description of Constantinople. It would go something like, because Constantinople is centrally located on the Mediterranean and connected with trade routes, including the Silk Road, Trans-Saharan trade route, as well as the Mediterranean complex, right? It becomes a focal point for merchants and exchange, right? And hopefully you hear that cause and effect relationship in that sentence, right? This is just the last little bit. Okay, and that's really, I think that last question, what I was trying to do down here, guys, is I'm trying to show you how the big idea that Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, because of their location, their convenient location to trade, is wealthier and is more culturally diverse than other empires that maybe are not located on so many trade routes. Hopefully that was helpful for you. I'll do the next one here shortly.